Hi everyone, I'm JD from Willow Journals. Welcome back to my channel. I am a journaler, journal maker, and teacher of journaling courses. And today is day 12 of the Inspiration Journal course. So here is a flip through of what I've done so far in my collage art journal. And if you want to follow along at home, there are daily collage prompts for 30 days. And so today our collage prompt is handwriting. So somewhere on your page, add a piece of handwriting. It could be your own handwriting, or it could be handwriting of someone in your family, a friend's handwriting, maybe a letter from them. Or what I have here is a page from my grandma's notebook, I suppose you'd call it. So this was one of the treasures that I found or discovered last year when I was given a whole bunch of things from my grandma. So one of my aunties brought over a whole bunch of photos and cards, postcards, fabric, thread, embroidery thread, and also this wonderful notebook of my grandma's. And so yeah, it was such a treasure chest and a treasure trove, finding all these goodies that were then passed down to me. And so I have 2 boxes of treasures from my grandma, and I think my absolute favorite treasure, because I'm a journaler, it's the notebook, and quite a lot of the pages were filled in with her writing, and there were still quite a few blank pages as well, which is awesome, so I can add my own writing to those. And just look at the beautiful vintage colour to the pages. So wonderful, so wonderful. So I just pulled out a page from that notebook with all of her beautiful handwriting, and then I pulled out one of the blank pieces, and that's what I'm using for well, I thought I was going to use it as journaling space, but I ended up using these doilies instead to do my journaling on top of. And these doilies also came from my grandma. She did all of these creative things. She knitted, or she knit, she crocheted, she embroidered, she quilted. Yeah, very, very talented. And yeah, every time we would visit her, we would go over to her house every Sunday pretty much to have lunch or afternoon tea with her. And she would always be sitting in the same chair, and she had a basket with all her wool in it and her supplies and threads and everything. And yeah, I just have memories of her always making something. There'd be something on her lap, whether it would be a scarf that she was knitting, or a blanket that she was quilting, or some embroidery that she was doing. So the journaling prompt for today is connection, because of how these pieces on the page here can remind me of this connection that I have with my grandma and the memories all associated with her. Also, this page on the left-hand side page, that came from a book passed down to me as well, but from my grandpa. So again, it's beautiful vintage, gorgeous color to it, and lovely big page size. It actually came from a Bible commentary. So he was a pastor, my grandpa, and actually both of them, my grandma and grandpa, they were missionaries in Papua New Guinea for quite a while. And so my dad was an MK, a missionary kid, and for the first 13 years of his life, he was in Papua New Guinea, so that's where he was born, before he came to Australia, where my grandparents were originally lived in in Australia. And so yeah, that is really fun. Connections, yeah, I love documenting all of this in a journal and representing it through real life ephemera that is passed down from my grandparents, and just so special, and love that family connection. And the fact that I can have a page from my grandpa's book that relates to his job as a pastor and being a missionary, and then having my grandma's handwriting from a book which actually came from her Bible college days. So this was her book where she took her notes for Bible college and maybe did some of her assignments and things like that. So yeah, really wonderful connection. She would always send me birthday cards. Like every single year she would send me a birthday card or give me a birthday card, and inside there would be a scripture. And yeah, so that was really lovely. And I kept most of her cards, so I do plan to use those cards in future journaling projects. And always that will remind me of her, and just how, yeah, she was a good role model. She always wore skirts and was, a very kind of presentable lady type of thing. Very kind. I never heard her yell. I never ever heard her say a bad word about anyone or anything, for that matter. And just, yeah, really an admirable lady and a good example, I guess. So that was really wonderful having that on that side of my family, because my other grandma, you've heard me talk about my other grandma quite a lot on my channel if you followed me for a while. She's the one who I call my kindred spirit. So my other grandma, she was more eccentric. She was very creative in her own right too. So it's really cool that both of my grandmas were very creative. My other grandma though, she painted, she decoupaged, she made me a decoupage jewelry box, and she decoupaged a hand mirror and hairbrush for me, and I still have the hairbrush to this day, one of my most prized possessions. She put a fairy on it and added some glitter, painted it blue, and some gold around the edge. So all of these things that I love. And she just knew me so well. She would also get me birthday presents, and she always knew exactly what to get me, and in a way that spoke to me. She always knew what I liked at the time, which at that time when I was a kid, it was often unicorns, sometimes dolphins, fairies, sparkles. One time she got me this crystal, and that is another one of my most prized possessions, this beautiful crystal that when the light shines on it, it sends rainbows all around the walls. So pretty. And yeah, so all these connections with my two grandparents or grandmas. I love how these journal pages and these pieces of ephemera can really bring all those connections out and bring all those memories out. So yeah, find some handwriting. It could be your own handwriting, and it connects you to whatever you wrote about. Like, I think another idea I had was to get some of my own handwriting from maybe a letter I wrote, or get one of the pages from one of my earlier journals, maybe from when I was a kid or when I was a teenager, and sticking that on the page, or maybe, some scribbled notes that I wrote one day, and then just journaling about who I was then and whatever it was I was going through at that time, and capturing that moment and whatever that connects you to. So if you don't have access to someone else's handwriting, for sure, you can use your own handwriting. And it doesn't have to be from the past either. You could literally just put your own handwriting on it if that's just the journaling you want to add for this page spread even. Handwriting. Challenge yourself. Especially if you're one of the people who is only doing a collage journal and you're not fussed about adding any journaling to it. The challenge is to somehow add handwriting to your page. It could be a whole page like this, or it could just be one word that you handwrite onto the page, or maybe one sentence. So, but that's the challenge, so have fun with that prompt. So yeah, I'm just laying down my pages using these bigger pages as backgrounds, and then I'll use the doilies to create my journaling space. And doilies are one of my favorite ways to create journaling spaces because they're decorative as well. I mean, you can add blank paper, you can add ledger paper as your blank writing space, which I do love doing that as well, of course. But when it's a doily or a linen, I just love that it's more interesting. It often has a unique shape, there's some color there, there's a pretty design. Often florals is what I am drawn to especially. And these particular ones that I'm using obviously have so much more special connection because of coming from my grandma. And I have the originals, and I'm just not sure what I'm going to do with the originals, if I turn them into journals. I feel like those are just too special to cut up or do anything like that with, so they'll probably just be preserved as is, as doilies forever while they're in my possession anyway. Yeah, really, really special. Oh, the hymn book. I have talked about that on a previous video on my channel. So when I would go to my grandparents' house, they had a little collection of little golden books, and they had a hymn book, they had a Bible book, they had a Three Little Pigs book, and I think a Three Little Bears one, which was the story of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Those four I remember. They may have had some others, but those are the four that I remember that they had and that I would often read when I was there. I even think there's a picture of my grandma reading one of the books to me as I sit on her lap. But yeah, one day it was just me over at my grandparents' house, and I guess I was getting babysat. And I was in the spare bedroom where the little golden books were, and I remember myself sitting myself on the floor and reading the hymn book, and my grandparents, they were in their rooms, and I was just in the spare room where I believe I slept the night over, and I sang my way through that hymn book from cover to cover. I didn't know the songs, most of them I didn't know. I think the only song that I knew the tune of was Jesus Loves Me, but every other song had no idea how the tunes went, so I made them up myself. that was the kind of kid I was. Yeah, just read through the book, singing out loud with my own tunes from cover to cover. And then at the end of that, I believe it was my grandpa who came in and visited me, and he was like, "Oh, it was so lovely hearing you sing your way through that book." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't even know you could hear me." And I was a little bit mortified that they could hear me. But anyway, I like looking back at that and thinking of that as a little delightful memory that they would have had of me, singing my way through the hymn book and self-entertaining myself going through that book. But yeah, so that book, I guess, has significant meaning for me, very sentimental, because it will always remind me of my grandparents, and I guess always remind me of that moment, that memory. And as well, if you've seen the cover of that little golden book, it's so pretty. Like there's flowers and it's a black background, and these children and the girls are wearing beautiful dresses, and just really, really pretty. So I got another copy of that book from the op shop. So I'm thinking of making myself a journal out of that cover because of that memory. So we'll see how we go. But I've already used all the pages from that hymn book in some faith journals, and this one I reserved for my inspiration journal. The title page, The Little Golden Book of Hymns. I just put a label over the top there so I could write something on top if I wanted to. I think that fits really well. It blended in the colour and everything. And now I'm just arranging, the journaling spaces onto my page. I added some washi tape down the centre of the pages and at the bottom, because the pages that I stuck onto these pages of my journal weren't quite large enough to cover the entire page. So that's a tip. Just use washi tape if you want to fill in some gaps. I've often used washi tape to fill in gaps. Quite handy. And just ripping down some of this beautiful paper, just so I'm not covering up too much writing, but also to just add another layer to my collage. So I actually have a page from my grandma's book, a blank page scanned, that is available in the 30-page document, collage kit document for the Inspiration Journal course. That is over on my Etsy and also on my Patreon for the Ruby tier, which is the Etsy tier, so you get access to every single digital kit in my Etsy. I believe there's now over 50 different kits, because I keep adding every month. I try to add a new one, so I think we're up to now 52 maybe. So yeah, feel free to make use of that and all the freebies as well. I can't quite remember if this piece is part of that freebie, but there's definitely lots of blank pieces in both of those kits because I wanted to make sure you have enough blank pieces to add your journaling if you want to add journaling to your collage, because I know when you're putting a collage together you're like, well, where do I put my journaling? Blank pieces, wonderful to add your journaling. So I just got some vintage ledgers and those types of papers that you can write on. And yeah, I hope that is a fun page for you to do at home, where you can get some handwriting on your page and just let that remind you of connections to people in your life or to memories in your life that you would like to document on your page. If you would like to see my journaling for this page, how I do that, and the fabric that I add, actually add some fabric to the page that I got from my grandma from that treasure chest of goodies that were given to me. And I love that the fabric it makes the page, I think, because it adds another layer and it's from my grandma. So I just think it works so well and ties in with the color scheme. And then how I add my journaling to this particular doily with the dog. So head on over to my Patreon for the Sapphire Tea if you'd like to see that video. Big special thank you to all my beautiful patrons who supported in May. Thank you for allowing me to do this for another month. I hope you absolutely love being a patron and all the extra rewards you get over on my Patreon. You get access to extra videos and printables and personal updates, first access to my journals and much more. So if you'd like to become a patron in June, feel free to check out the link in the description box to my Patreon.